Good morning. On behalf of Bangabandhu Center and Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, Canada, I welcome all of you to today's special webinar titled Denial and Recognition, the Case of Bangladesh Genocide. This morning, we remember 3 million lost souls of Bangladesh, for who justice is still waiting. Today's webinar is a part of Peace Days organized by Rotary Club of Winnipeg. Peace Day is a space that's been created to promote and inspire understanding, goodwill, and compassion locally, nationally, and internationally. It supports and motivates people who want a culture of peace and compassion. It encourages conversations and relationships that will inspire action, commitment, and the promotion of positive peace and peace literacy. Peace Days was inspired by Rotary World Peace Partners in 2003, envisaging the idea of Canadian Museum for Human Rights as a beacon of hope for the oppressed, impoverished, and vulnerable peoples of the world. Peace Days grew out of a desire to celebrate the United Nations International Day of Peace, which is September 21st. Dear audience, before we begin, let me do the treaty recognition. Bangabandhu Center and Conflict and Resilience Research Institute is located on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homelands of Metis Nation. We all are promise-bound to work together in the true spirit of reconciliation. Dear audience, today we have invited renowned scholars and officials from Canadian Museum for Human Rights, our partners, Liberation War Museum in Bangladesh, and Center for Genocide Studies, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, a family member of victim of genocide, to reflect upon the theme. Because genocide in Bangladesh is subject of grave importance, one that has left an indelible mark on the history of Bangladesh and continues to reverberate in the collective memory of its people. Now we'll speak about Bangladesh genocide that started in earnest with an attempt to eliminate the rights to speak in one's mother tongue in 1952 and continued till 1971. A dark chapter that has been extensively documented yet remains a subject of denial and no recognition. The events of 1971 were not merely a footnote in the annals of history. They were a cataclysmic series of atrocities that led to the loss of 3 million lives and the displacement of another few millions. During this period, widespread acts of violence, including mass killings, rapes, and the displacement of civilians, were perpetrated predominantly by the Pakistani military and their collaborators. One of the most credible accounts of these events comes from Archer Blood, the then US Consul General in Dhaka. His dispatches, known as blood telegrams, provided the US government and the world at large with first-hand accounts of the atrocities being committed. Blood's cables were unflinching in their detail, describing the indiscriminate killing of civilians, the targeted elimination of intellectual and cultural elites, and the systematic use of sexual violence as a weapon of war. His reports were so damning that they led to internal debates within the US administration, although they unfortunately did not result in immediate intervention. Dear audience, let me read a page from his book, page 130. Quoting the works of renowned journalist and Pulitzer Prize-winning winner, Mr. Sidney Hillel Schanberg, who famously covered the war in Cambodia, he says, in June, a reporter for Life among the teeming crowds in West Bengal was struck by the thriving of the vultures. Quote, the flesh eaters were glossy, repulsively replete, unquote. The correspondent moved past the corpse of a baby, the clean pigged skeleton of a young child, and then dead refugees wrapped in mats and saris and looking like parcels fallen from a speedy truck, unquote. The living were packed together, exhausted, baked by the sun. People vomited. Those who were not too far gone begged for space on a truck. An overworked Indian administrator felt physically ill from watching children dying. He asked, can we cope? The civil administration ceased to be able to cope long ago. As cholera and other diseases spread, The lucky ones made it to hospital carried by rickshaw or ox cart. Hollow-eyed, the only semi-conscious in the list, less torpor of total exhaustion, they lay and wretched. Relatives fanned the black fog of flies from their faces. Unquote. And this was reported in early June 1971. Dear audience, the denial and non-recognition of Bangladesh genocide is not merely an academic debate. It has real-world implications for justice, reconciliation, and the collective memory of a nation now we call Bangladesh. Denialism serves to perpetuate the sufferings of survivors and their families, while also emboldening future perpetrators and mass violence. It is our moral and ethical responsibility to confront this denial head-on, to ensure that the victims are honored and such atrocities are not repeated. With this context, dear audience, let me briefly introduce our speakers today, who most of them need not any introduction because of their work in this area. We have a speech from our Foreign Secretary, People's Republic of Bangladesh. We have Dr. Adam Muller, Director, Peace and Conflict Studies Program, University of Manitoba, and a renowned genocide scholar. We'll have remarks from our Chief Patron, His Excellency. Then we have Dr. Jeremy Maron, Acting Head of Curation, Museum for Human Rights, Manitoba. We have our partner, Mr. Mofidul Haq, Trustee, Liberation War Museum, Bangladesh. We have Dr. Tawhid Reza Noor, Visiting Scholar, State University of New York at Binghamton. We also have Professor Sheikh Hafizur Rahman Curzon, Director, Center for Genocide Studies. Today, we are also very proud to have Gary Samt, Advisor, Creek, and co-founder Peace Days. We have Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin, and we also have a renowned scholar, Dr. Professor Emdad Haq, and who kindly joined our session, and we'll listen to his remarks as well. With this brief introduction, dear audience, let me just play the video recorded message of Foreign Secretary of People's Republic of Bangladesh.
Good morning from New York. I wish I could be connected real time. However, conflicts of scheduling seem to be an issue. But I'm glad that I could speak with the backdrop of the Twisted Gun at the UN premises. I begin by thanking Bangabandhu Center for Bangladesh Studies in Canada for organizing this important webinar in collaboration with Bangladesh High Commission in Ottawa, Bangladesh Liberation War Museum, Center for Genocide Studies at the University of Dhaka, as well as the Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, Canada. I also thank Bangabandhu Center for Bangladesh Studies in Canada for undertaking initiatives to exhibit Bangladesh genocide evidences in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. On this occasion, I pay my deepest tribute to Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and most of his family members who were brutally killed on 15th August 1975. I also pay my deepest tribute to 3 million martyrs, more than 200,000 women who lost honor, and other unfortunate souls who all were victims of the genocide in 1971. The memories and trauma associated with the genocide inflicted upon us by the armed forces of Pakistan in 1971 are still very much vivid in our collective memory. For those who lived through it with the experience of losing family members and friends, witnessing horrific acts of violence and being forced to flee their homes and communities, the genocide has left a lasting impact on their lives. For younger generations, the legacy of the genocide is still felt through the tales and trauma passed down from their elders. We feel a deep sense of loss and grief for the lives that were lost and the trauma that was inflicted upon the genocide survivors. The memory of the genocide has become a powerful symbol of our strength and determination and our ability to overcome adversity. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout history, genocide has plagued humanity for centuries. The 20th century was smeared by a number of brutal genocides, including the genocide in Bangladesh in 1971. And yet, despite our knowledge of the atrocities, recognition of genocides remains a far cry. You are aware that the 1948 UN Genocide Convention does not designate any numerical threshold for genocide. However, Hardly we can compare the scale, enormity, and magnitude of 1971 genocide in Bangladesh with other genocides around the world. In addition to 3 million deaths, 200,000 women were violated. Around 30,000 women committed suicide from torture and humiliation at the hands of the Pakistan military and their collaborators. Clearly, heinous strategy of rape, arson, looting and property damage, forced displacements were major features of these genocidal activities. Unlike any other genocide, the Pakistani rulers backed by Pakistan Army shortlisted the Bengali intellectuals and scholars and verbally killed them on 14 December 1971 in cold blood, 2 days before the victory of Bangladesh. All these make the prima facie case of 1971 genocide in Bangladesh within the terms of the UN's Genocide Convention. Distinguished guests, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, took steps for bringing the perpetrators of the genocide to justice, appealed to the UN and other world powers for taking into cognizance the atrocities of the Pakistani army, asked the citizens of Bangladesh to report all genocidal crimes committed during the War of Liberation, prepared a list of 195 Pakistan military officers to be tried, enacted a law and established International Crime Tribunal in 1973. He did all these systematic attempts to seek justice for victims of the genocide. The tribunal was the first major such tribunal in the world since the trial of post-World War II. Unfortunately, every effort came to a dead stop after his brutal assassination in 1975, and the efforts fell short of a well-orchestrated, forceful demand that could make some headway. The momentum could not be maintained due to the topsy-turvy journey of Bangladesh after the brutal killing of the father of the nation. We have witnessed military interventions and undemocratic regimes which worked as agents of genocide deniers, betraying the genocide victims in order to clinch to the state power. Dear participants, recognition of a genocide pays tribute to the martyrs and other victims and brings some solace to victim families and to reduce the trauma experienced by survivors and victims' families. I am happy that the issue of recognition of the 1971 Bangladesh genocide, though late, has been raised boldly and strongly at all levels, be it national or international. We have revived the International Crimes Tribunal into 2010, and that has conducted several cases since then and delivered an executed verdict. Our Parliament adopted a proposal on 11 March 2017 declaring 25th March as Genocide Day. This happened after almost 5 decades of our independence. It may be noted that on the 25th March 1971, Pakistan Army unleashed the infamous Operation Searchlight to follow the scorched earth policy. We are pleased to note that many leading international organizations working with genocide studies and prevention all over the world recognize the 1971 Bangladesh genocide. I convey my sincere thanks to them. I also thank all the scholars and organizations in Bangladesh and abroad, such as Bangladesh Liberation War Museum, Bangladesh Support Group, Projonmo 71, Amra Ekattor, International Crime Strategy Forum, Bangabandhu Center for Bangladesh Studies in Canada, Center of Genocide Studies at the University of Dhaka, who have been working relentlessly to highlight the 1971 Bangladesh genocide for its due international recognition. I express my deep gratitude to the U.S. Congressman Steve Cabot and Congressman Ro Khanna for tabling a bipartisan resolution on the recognizing the Bangladesh genocide of 1971 at the House of Representatives in October last year. I would urge upon all the U.S. congressmen and congresswomen to endorse the resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not only genocide victims, but also a
Thank you very much. That was the recorded message from the Honorable Foreign Secretary, People's Republic of Bangladesh, and he apologized for not being able to be with us live because his meeting with the Secretary General sort of coincided, unfortunately. The audience now, let me welcome Chief Patron of the Bangabandhu Center and His Excellency Dr. Khalil Rahman for his opening remarks. Sir, please take your floor. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good evening. I know all the distinguished speakers and guests and expert except Professor Karjon. Congratulations on taking up the position of Director of the Genocide Center of Dhaka University. We'll be talking to you soon about our MOU. Um, Dr. Kausar, first of all, it's always nice, for you to include me, chief patron of the center, and definitely we all look forward to hearing our expert and scholars. I won't be talking anything of substance regarding genocide because my friend, my boss, Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, has already spoken. So that should be taken what the government of Bangladesh is doing, what they're looking forward, and how they're working with all national and international organizations for the widespread and finally global recognition to the genocide that took place in Bangladesh in 1971. I just like to make 2 points. First of all, it happened in 1971 in Bangladesh. It's happening today, even. Why it is happening? Because we always try to deny the genocide that took place in the past, and we always try to avoid recognition to those genocide. So if the world, we all could have done that, perhaps the genocides that are taking place now around the world would not have taken place. So that's why it is very, very important for the Canadian Museum for Human Rights to kindly and seriously consider recognition of the genocide in 1971 in Bangladesh. And we really are very grateful for the collaboration support we are having from the museum, as well as for all the colleagues, especially Professor Adam Muller, as an independent reviewer of the submission. We are very grateful for your visit to Bangladesh. I think in your own eyes, you have seen the evidences of genocide, what happened in 1971 in Bangladesh, independently to look at all the evidences. And secondly, I like to say that, since we are working for last 2 years with the museum, I believe that the community here in Canada and the Bangladeshis and at the government level, we expect that the museum authorities maybe very soon would be coming to a decision that when these evidences can be displayed in the museum. So with this expectation, I really like to listen to all of you because you are the experts, you are the well known, well renowned scholars in this area of genocide. So I am just waiting to listen to you all. So once again, I thank you all for kindly joining at the invitation of the center and for being with us. And with that, I end here. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, Bangladesh Chiranjeevi Hock.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks. The audience, we will invite Professor Dr. Adam Muller for his keynote speech. Dr. Adam leads the PAX program, Peace and Conflict Studies program in University of Manitoba. Dr. Adam, please take your floor, sir.
Thank you very kindly, Kauser. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to see old colleagues and friends and to be in such distinguished company. My regards, especially, of course, to His Excellency the High Commissioner and to the Honorable Foreign Secretary. It really is a privilege to be here with you. So my remarks today about genocide recognition are, I think, in many ways a consequence of my enduring affection for the ideas of the Canadian philosopher Charles Taylor, whose landmark studies of the origins of selfhood and the self's present functioning in the multicultural modern West were very much in the air when I began my doctoral studies at McGill University in Montreal in 1991. Taylor had just published his masterwork, The Sources of the Self, in 1989. He just published, when I got there, The Malaise of Modernity, and in 1991, and then in 1994, he published The Politics of Recognition. And it's in these works that he talks about what recognition is and why it matters. Specifically, Taylor attempts to map the evolution of the processes whereby we come to acquire our sense of personhood, our felt, embodied, and unique understanding of what it means to be something in the world. Now, chief amongst the processes responsible for the formation of our identities is what Taylor refers to as recognition. And very roughly, Taylor's view is that the individuals we understand ourselves to be, the beings that we think we are, partly because of what our genetics make us, and partly because of when, where, and how we were born and raised, these ideas about ourselves come into focus and are sustained by the ways our identities are or are not recognized by others. Taylor refers to them as significant others. Their judgments of us help to shape us. Now, if by the term identity we understand a person's conception of their own selfhood, their awareness of what they are and can do in the world, then it becomes easy to imagine how important it would be for others to see and react positively to that person as they would like to be seen, and how vulnerable these people would be to emotional harm or other insecurity if others failed to recognize them or withheld recognition of their personhood. Taylor has this idea of racism as fundamentally involving the withholding of recognition for another person's full humanity or personhood. In Taylor's words, quote, "The demand for recognition is given urgency by the supposed links between recognition and identity, where this latter term designates something like a person's understanding of who they are, of their fundamental defining characteristics as a human being. The thesis is that our identity is partly shaped by recognition or its absence, often by the misrecognition of others. And so a person or group of people can suffer real damage, real distortion, if the people or society around them mirror back to them a confining or demeaning or contemptible picture of themselves." My point today is that as with personal identities, so too with other identities, including national identities. Who and what a nation state is results in significant part from what the nation signals about itself through public pronouncements or performances of national identity, including the curation of national museums and art galleries, public commemorations like this one of prior traumas and achievements, shared rituals and patterns of life and conduct, history textbooks, school curricula, and laws. As public expressions of identity, these assertions of a nation's being in the world must be recognized in order to become salient, and thus are vulnerable to harm following from what Taylor calls the practice of misrecognition. Again, in Taylor's words, quote, "Misrecognition shows not just a lack of due respect, it can inflict a grievous wound. Due recognition is not just a courtesy we owe people, it is a vital human need." So it's from within the framework of an understanding of recognition as a so-called vital human need that I'm approaching the question of recognizing the Bangladesh genocide. To put the matter slightly differently, I would argue that a failure to recognize the Bangladesh genocide as such perpetrates a significant harm on Bangladesh and its people by withholding affirmation and, in a sense, legitimation of Bangladeshis' narratives concerning the specifics of their national history and national culture. Why do these narratives matter? Well, if we follow Alistair MacIntyre, a philosopher, I want to suggest that at a personal level, we depend on these stories to make sense of our lives. Absent these narratives, we have no way to find coherence in the relation of the events of our lives, and so we remain fractured and confused about who and what we are and are striving to be. Likewise with national narratives. They impart nuance and coherence to the ideas we possess of a nation and its people. And in the absence of these shared and mutually understood as shared stories, we are left with social fragmentation, alienation, and anomie. So what I'm arguing is that any failure to recognize Bangladeshis and their history on their own terms leaves open the possibility of the country and citizens being misconceived and unable to insist on being understood and interacted with in particular ways. And I think we see the failure of recognition at work in attempts in some quarters to frame Bangladeshis as perpetrators in the liberation war rather than as victims. We also see this failure of recognition in attempts to deny the reality of the many, many acts of sexual violence that the Honorable High Commissioner and Foreign Secretary alluded to that were part of the experience of the Bangladeshi Liberation War and were perpetrated by Pakistani forces against women. So my point is the genocide denial robs victims of their victimhood and weakens claims for post-conflict justice and redress. As the psychologist Irvin Staub has written with regard to genocide recognition, and explaining why that recognition matters to victims of atrocious violence. Staub says, first, our identities are rooted not only in our group, but in the history of our group. For a complete identity, we must be integrated not only with our individual past, but also with our group's past. Perhaps this becomes especially important when our group is partly destroyed and dispersed. Our families and ourselves have been deeply affected, and in a physical sense, we have at best fragments of our group. Second, he says, we have a profound need for our pain and suffering, especially when it's born of injustice, to be acknowledged, known, and respected. Like Charles Taylor, Staub is aware that any group or community is sustained not merely by its ability to tell and share stories about itself and its traumas, but also by having those stories and the identities dependent on them recognized by significant others. So in closing, let me just say that genocide recognition should be seen as empowering and dignifying. It grants something essential to a people whose status as members of a group have been subjected to annihilatory force, namely recognition of their experience and its accompanying suffering. Recognition also challenges the idea that perpetrators may act with impunity. Recognition forces perpetrators and their allies to accept responsibility for their actions in order to be held legally, morally, and historically accountable before their former enemies and neighbors, as well as before the world. As we reflect today on the significance of the Bangladesh genocide of 1971 and its denial, we must also perhaps think about the importance of a national museum such as the Canadian Museum for Human Rights deciding to include the story of this genocide in its Breaking the Silence gallery. This inclusion will directly confront and undermine the perpetrator's impulse to deny and distort. It will advocate for justice on behalf of Bangladeshi victims of genocidal violence, and it will encourage the prevention of future genocides by showing that perpetrators cannot act with impunity. In the words of UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, quote, "We must do everything possible to hold those responsible to account, not only because it provides justice for victims and punishment for perpetrators. It matters because extending impunity is central to ending genocide. Prevention and punishment, the explicitly stated twin aims of the Genocide Convention, can never be seen in isolation from each other. Punishment is key to prevention. Impunity is an enabler of genocide. Accountability is its nemesis." Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Adam. What an insightful keynote speech. And the audience just remember his couple of words as he said that impunity is the enabler of genocide. So with these thoughts, let me welcome our friend from Canadian Museum for Human Rights, Mr. Jeremy Maron, acting head of curation of the museum, and who traveled to Bangladesh. And we are so grateful for his interest and his personal time that he invested in going around and witnessing the sites of genocide. Jeremy, floor is yours, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Kauser. Good day to everyone joining us today from Dhaka to Winnipeg and everywhere in between. And special greetings to Your Excellency, the High Commissioner. Appreciation to the words of the Foreign Secretary. Greetings to my friend Mofidal from the Liberation War Museum. Thanks to Adam for your powerful words, and it's just a privilege to be amongst such esteemed speakers and guests. And I thank the organizers for this webinar for the invitation to address you today. And it's my privilege to bring greetings on behalf of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights to this important commemorative program on the issue of genocide denial, the importance of recognition, in particular in relation to the case of the Bangladesh genocide of 1971. When it comes to human rights violations, from the titanic scale of genocide or crimes against humanity that transcend borders, to the much more localized cases of domestic abuse within private abodes, denial and the associated phenomena of distortion and minimization are omnipresent. Denial and distortion aim to suppress the truth about what happened in atrocities for a variety of reasons. Perpetrators may want to avoid guilt. In some cases, they may feel shame. And of course, national or political considerations can also play a role in refusing to recognize the truth of or individual or collective complicity in cases of gross human rights violations. And as the previous speakers have alluded to, a consequence of this lack of recognition of this denial and distortion is a perpetuation and continuation of the trauma of the violations to those that survived, those that lost loved ones, and their descendants, as well as diasporic communities, as the suffering that they and their people had endured remains suppressed and unacknowledged. Without acknowledgement about what happened during gross human rights violations, how can justice, accountability, recovery, commemoration, healing, or even reconciliation even begin to be thought of or occur? So it's for this reason that fighting against denial and distortion of human rights violations, including genocides and crimes against humanity, is crucial for the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in the fulfillment of our mandate. And as part of this impetus, for which we've been so heartened and grateful for the engagement and passion of the Bangladeshi community in Bangladesh, in Canada, and elsewhere, we are going through the process of developing new content on the atrocities perpetrated in 1971 in Bangladesh for, as Adam mentioned, our Breaking the Silence gallery, a gallery that looks at silence breaking as a pivotal human rights act in response not only to the violations themselves, but to the denial, distortion, and minimization that can come, or that almost always comes in their aftermath. And one component of our work on this new content has been a research trip that I took to Dhaka earlier this year, for which I thank Dr. Ahmed and the High Commissioner for organizing. I have to thank also Mofidal Hoque from the Liberation War Museum for welcoming me, and your colleagues Emran Azad and Hasib Chowdhury for escorting me during my time there. So I just wanted to say how grateful I am for that opportunity to visit Dhaka, visit sites of the genocide at the University of Dhaka, the Liberation War Museum, as well as some sites of other massacres. And on this trip, I also had the chance to meet with descendants of victims, the generation of 1971. And in my conversation with these individuals that welcomed me with such warmth and hospitality, it was clear that the lack of acknowledgement and the lack of recognition and ongoing denial of these atrocities that their loved ones experience exacerbates the pain, leaving the trauma of 1971 as a festering wound on both individual and collective psyches and spirits. So on behalf of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, we view it as a privilege and a moral and ethical responsibility to continue to bring information about these violations to our visitors and to the general public through participation in events like these and through the content being developed as one step in fighting against denial. And for this, again, we're so grateful for the friendship and partnership of so many in the Bangladeshi community. And I thank you again for the opportunity to address you all today. And I wish best wishes for the rest of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jeremy. And it is such a great delight to have Jeremy with us this morning. And as always, and he consistently supported the idea, and he rightly mentioned that denial has to be stopped, denial has to be faced head on. Thank you, Jeremy, once again for being with us. Dear audience, let me now welcome Dr. Mafidul Haq, Mr. Mafidul Haq from Liberation War Museum of Bangladesh. Sir, please go ahead for your remarks.
Thank you, Professor Kausar Ahmed, and thanks to the esteemed panel and also Honorable High Commissioner of Bangladesh in Canada, Dr. Khalilur Rahman, and two distinguished panelists who actually laid very strongly the case of Bangladesh genocide and what denial, what it cost, and also what is the importance of recognition. It is not only that recognizing a past brutality, but also learning the lessons of history. I think that's the most important part of the whole exercise that we are engaged in. And we understand very well. And as I think Adam Muller was speaking about the question of identity and the national identity, I think that's a very important part of our history. And it is also very important to note that the struggle for Bangladesh was upholding certain values, the values which have great relevance for the subcontinent and also has great relevance for the world we are witnessing today. And it is the core issue is the multiculturalism, respect for diversity, and creating an inclusive society. And the subcontinent was divided on the religious line, and Pakistan was established as a theocratic state, which turned into also a theocratic, autocratic state. And the state of Pakistan, actually, with the denial of national identity and the rights of self-determination, finally actually tried to solve the problem in one of the 20th century after the Holocaust. And we can look into the problem in many different ways. And I think one important aspect is that how you
Apology for technical difficulties from Bangladesh. Mr. Mufidul Haq would be joining us again, hopefully. And as you wait for him, just from our side, Liberation War Museum is a partner, and we are working together on this matter. And he's also renowned for his tireless effort in curating exhibits in the museum. And I think with the visit of Professor Dr. Adam Muller and Dr. Jeremy Maron in Bangladesh, the extent and the quality of the exhibits, I think both have witnessed. And we are working together for almost 2 years now on this project so that some of the exhibits we can bring here for, as Dr. Jeremy Maron mentioned, in the museum. While we wait, the audience, let me bring our another partner, Center for Genocide Studies, and the director, Professor Sheikh Karzan, to the floor. And let me see if Dr. If Mr. Mafidul Haq, can you hear me? Can you hear us, sir?
Yeah, now I'm sorry, the connection went off.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Finish your remarks. Thank you.
Okay. I think I will finish it quickly, and because of this problem in connection. But I think most importantly, if we look into the way that peace days are being celebrated in Canada with the initiative of many partners, I think this is a great range that we can find that to struggle against denialism and to establish the recognition of not only the brutality, but also what is very important for our life in today. And I think the core issue is also memorialization, which Liberation War Museum is engaged it, and also Canadian Museum of Human Rights. And memory can play a very important role against denialism. And this can be reflected in many different ways. And I think with the memorialization, the issue comes of the truth and justice. And also the genocide, which is a crime of the crimes and crimes against humanity. It is the
So you're. Oh, I think we have technical difficulties from Mr. Mafidul Haq's side in Bangladesh. So we can rejoin with him later. So let's bring Professor Sheikh Hafizur Rahman Karzan, the director for Center for Genocide Studies, a partner with Bangabandhu Center on this project. Professor Sheikh Hafizur Rahman Karzan, floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Kausar. Dr. Adam Muller, the keynote speaker. And I would like to thank you because we have heard very scholarly and insightful keynote paper, which have underlined the importance, the consequences of denial and the importance of recognition of Bangladesh genocide. Dr. Khalilur Rahman, Mr. Mofidul Haq, trustee of Muktijuddo Jadughar, Dr. Jeremy Maron, Dr. Tawhid Rezanur, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin, Honorable High Commissioner and Honorable Foreign Secretary, my salam and good wishes to all. And when we talk about genocide, I think it is the story of brutality, notoriety, unbearable sufferings of thousands of peoples in any part of this world. And when we are talking about genocide, I would like to start from Second World War, because we know that the statute of Nuremberg Tribunal didn't include genocide. So there was huge repercussion, international repercussion. As a repercussion of this non-inclusion of genocide in the statute of Nuremberg Tribunal, the United Nations adopted Genocide Convention on 9 December 1948. And the international community after Second World War understood that we have to do something perpetually or permanently so that we can stop the violation of human rights and we can preserve the human rights of the global community. And as a result, we have seen the establishment of United Nations. We have seen the adoption of Genocide Convention. We have seen the adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have seen the adoption of 4 ICRC Geneva conventions. Though genocide, but unfortunately, though genocide convention was adopted, but we failed to establish any international criminal tribunal or criminal court for the prosecution of the people who commit international crime. And though after at the end of the from the end of the Second World War till 5 years, we have seen very good development in international arena. But unfortunately, after 1950s, the whole world entered into an era of Cold War. The whole world, it was divided between 2 blocks, capitalist bloc and socialist bloc. And we have seen the development of human rights, because we know that in 1948, the international community, they wanted to adopt international convention as to human rights, but they didn't. They adopted the Universal Declaration, and after in 1966, we have seen United Nations, they adopted 2 international convention on civil and political rights, another on economic, social, and cultural rights. And also, we have seen that the enthusiasm and the interest in the prosecution of the people who commit international crime, it also, we have seen very grim picture because of this Cold War. Then we have we see resurrected interest of UN and uh, uh, international UN and international community from 1993 and 1994 by establishing ICTY and ICTR, and in course of time, International Criminal Court was established in July 2002. And now I want to shed light on the genocide of Bangladesh, because now we know that the Pakistan military and their Bangladeshi allies massacred millions of people just within a time span of 9 months. And Pakistan military junta mobilized their soldiers on a killing spree on 25th March 1971 with an operation codenamed Operation Searchlight. And the brutal activities of Pakistan Army and their local collaborators constituted genocide under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. And we, the uh, intellectual and scholar who are trying to promote the cause of, who are working for recognition of the international recognition of Bangladesh genocide, sometimes we struggle because in the international arena, the scholars, they ask how your genocide fit the definition of genocide convention. So I would like to argue the genocide of Bangladesh, it will come under the Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, because it was a clear genocide as Pakistan Army followed all the process of a genocide against Bangladeshi people. Then it was called East Pakistan. Unfortunately, Bangladesh genocide is very less known globally. And secondly, Pakistan Army's brutality in 1971 constituted genocide because the junta and their local associates, they used rape systematically to silence the freedom movement of Bangladesh. And Susan Brown Miller linked the 1971 rapes in Bangladesh to the Japanese rapes in Nanjing and German rapes in Russia during Second World War. Her research found that 2 to 4 lakhs people, they were subjected to, they were rape victims in Bangladesh. Number 3, Pakistani armed forces, their brutality, their killing, their destruction, their torture and other criminal activities constituted genocide because they did this to destroy Bengali nation in East Pakistan intentionally and in a very planned way. And they also tried to destroy the ethnic community, which we call Bengali community, and the religious community, which we call Hindu community. And though it is said that after Second World War, Bangladeshi genocide in 1971 has been the largest Holocaust in the whole world, but this genocide is not widely known globally and yet to be recognized by the UN. However, from 2010, when Bangladesh government established International Crimes Tribunal for the prosecution of the people who committed infamous international crime in 1971, we have seen new interest as to the trial of international crime and discussion on the Bangladesh genocide nationally and internationally. Since 2010, civil society platforms and diaspora groups have taken initiatives for recognition of Bangladesh genocide. In 2017, already Foreign Secretary, he has mentioned this, Bangladesh government has declared 25 March as Genocide Day. And it is of great importance that a number of civil society and diaspora groups, namely Forum for Secular Bangladesh, Liberation War Museum, and Genocide Torture Archive and Museum, have been making continuous efforts to achieve international recognition and Bangladesh genocide. And in 2022, a Netherlands-based diaspora organization, Bangladesh Support Group, along with Projanmo Ekattur and Amra Ekattur, formally appealed to the UN Human Rights Council to recognize Bangladesh genocide. It is to be mentioned that Bangladeshi Foreign Ministry has started to make advocacy of international recognition of 1971 genocide as part of its policy. Bangladesh has a Ministry for Liberation War Affairs, which is playing an important role in pursuing the agenda of genocide recognition through research. Though Bangladesh genocide is less focused and there are waves of denial, but I want to conclude my presentation with a positive note that in spite of many limitations, Bangladeshi genocide is drawing attention of the international organization and groups, uh, starting from 2010, from the time when Bangladesh government started the prosecution. Bangladesh government established International Crimes Tribunal, and there were two International Crimes Tribunal which prosecuted till now 54 mastermind of the 1971 genocide, and particularly they were local collaborators. We failed to bring justice to the Pakistani military, but we are thinking to do that. And I am drawing your attention that because of the activities of the diaspora groups and civil society groups, the genocide of Bangladesh, they are drawing the attention of national and international organization and groups and genocide scholar. For example, Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention, Genocide Watch, the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience, and International Association of Genocide Scholars have already recognized Bangladesh genocide with the objective to underline the sacrifices of the martyrs and the necessity to bring the perpetrators to justice. I want to end my presentation uh, with the wording of our keynote speaker, because keynote speaker, he was saying that recognition means to empower and glorify the victims of genocide. If we do not recognize Bangladesh genocide, then we cannot empower, we cannot respect the victims of Bangladesh genocide. And we know that there were 3 million martyrs, and 500,000 of the women, they were subjected to different types of torture. And also we have to promote the process of prosecution of the both Pakistan military and local collaborators. Because of the activities of the very courageous and bold activities of Bangladesh government, already to International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh, they prosecuted 54 local collaborators. But now we require to bring the Pakistani military to justice, and also we are fighting for recognition of Bangladesh genocide. And as the keynote speaker has stated, it will promote the process of empowerment of the victims of genocide, and also promote the process of bringing the perpetrators to justice. So with this, I am thanking the organizers for giving me an opportunity to make a presentation in this very distinguished forum, and my good wishes for all the distinguished organization and the distinguished scholars who have participated in this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sheikh Karzan. It's such a wonderful statement, and we continue to working together in this project in the future. The audience, let me bring scholar Professor Dr. Emdad Haq to the discussion. He's a prominent community member and as well as technical advisor to the center. Professor Dr. Emdad, floor is yours, sir. Please go ahead.
Good morning, good evening, Assalamu alaikum. High Commissioner Dr. Khalil Rahman and other distinguished speakers and guests. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak and reflect on the genocide that took place in 1971. Since Raphael Lemkin in 1944 introduced the word genocide, the concept genocide, and 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, 75 to 80 years gone by, and we can see that still many of the genocide that took place in the 20th century and 21st century are denied. Why such denial is taking place when the human rights is the very forefront of human survival? As Professor Adam Muller very succinctly explained, that the issue of individual identity and national identity are very much correlated with the recognition of genocide or avoidance of this denial. I would like to reflect myself with first-hand experience. from 25th of March to 16 December, in 9 months' time, Pakistani perpetrators killed more than 3 million people by declaring the Muslims in Pakistan, labeling them as Hindus. So they tried to label a religious tone and exploit the situation. So the issue is that this denial, timing is very important. It is time now to recognize, because the generation is still alive. I myself witnessed the genocide. I myself is victim because I lost many of my relatives due to genocide. And we are still alive. I'm still alive as a witness, and the perpetrators are still alive. Down the road, 30 years, 50 years, none of these individuals will be alive, and the direct evidence will be gone. So therefore, I call upon not only just this Canadian Museum of Human Rights, but all other relevant institutions to recognize it now. It is time to bring this issue to the forefront and avoid this denial. I think it is very critical, not only for Bangladesh communities, but for the global community, that we need, in 21st century, we need to avoid this denial because of the geopolitical affairs. The denial, the fundamental cause is related to geopolitical affairs. And that part we need to overcome, and the issue of morality and human rights should come to the very forefront. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Such a wonderful and I think very powerful remarks. Professor Amdad has brought the generation who were alive in 71. They are still with us. And if we do not make enough efforts to preserve those exhibits, then it will be lost forever. Thank you, sir, for reminding us this morning. Dear audience, let me bring Mr. Gary Senf to the discussion. He's bringing message from the Peace Days, and he's a friend of Rotary as well. Gary, sir, go ahead.
So thank you very much. As we move towards closing in our work here, I just want to express gratitude. So the work that we have here of the Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada, Dr. Kutterman, the High Commissioner, Foreign Secretary, and just great scholars. Winnipeg Peace Builders Committee, our Rotary Committee that created Peace Days, is humbled by the quality and the work and the depth here. I think what's so important is to think about our general theme for this year was belonging. And it's so important to the human condition to feel that you belong. And genocide is almost the antithesis of belonging. So it's such an important work to study and consider. So I leave you with the thinking on belonging. Dr. Muller and others have mentioned the importance of recognition. So this gives us the forum, the ability, and with the work of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, which we have here in Winnipeg, the ability to do that recognition, as was explained by the Breaking the Silence exhibition, is so important. I think deep listening is important. So we're a grassroots organization, and hopefully our audience is listening deeply to the words that are being said here. And in the end, with all the scholars present, the hopefulness that the lessons that we learn can actually be used to then create a situation where peace can exist in the world. So thank you all.
Thank you, Gary, for reminding us the theme of Peace Days, belonging. That was also a very powerful theme that we have selected for this year. The audience, we are almost at the end of the session, but we have a very important presentation now to be made by Dr. Tauhid Reza Noor. And in introducing Dr. Tauhid, he is a fellow with the Binghamton University, New York, and also his work is recognized and from Lemkin Institute for Genocide Watch, and he tirelessly worked to get recognition from IIGS, International Association of Genocide Scholars, about a resolution just a couple of months ago. And with him, I was present in speaking about the genocides in Barcelona Law University just past July. So his work is deeply appreciated, and let me bring him to the discussion. And he's also a family member of a victim of genocide. So Dr. Tawhid Rezanur, please go ahead, sir, with your remarks.
Thank you very much for organizing this very timely event. Thanks to the organizers. And also, I feel proud sharing this panel with distinguished guests and scholars. So, as Professor Kausar Ahmed just said, that I belong to a victim family. My father, Shirajuddin Hussain, was a journalist in the Daily Ittifaq. And just before 6 days of a victory, there was a systematic intellectual killing, that started in December. So, as a part of that, my father was abducted, and along with many others for the rest of the days, and he never returned. At that time, I was of 3 years. And also during the Liberation War, that starting from the capital city, also down to the remote areas, brutally people experienced the brutal, barbaric, horrendous killings and the genocide, the acts of genocide. So anyway, let me just talk about the issue that has been decided for this event. So all of us know that genocide was first codified as an independent crime in the 1948 convention, and it has been adopted over there. And the convention is known as the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Usually we in short say that the Genocide Convention. It was invented by Raphael Lemkin, we know. And Raphael Lemkin basically meant with this word genocide to apply a partial genocide as well as genocide intended to destroy in whole, that is in part as well as in whole. So in case of genocide, we know there are two parties. Broadly two parties. One is perpetrators and the other one is the victim, the affected group. In order to execute their intention to destroy, the perpetrators usually build up collaborations with others who believe in similar ideology or remain loyal with the ideology of the perpetrators. So jointly they commit genocide. And during genocide, there remain another group of people who remain silent or remain indifferent, who we know as bystanders or onlookers. So ultimately, these people, there is the bystander group, they help committing genocide or genocidal crimes to take place. If we just remind a bit about Article 1 of Genocide Convention, that said all the contracting parties confirm that genocide, whether committed in time of peace or in time of war, it is a crime under international law, which they undertake to prevent and to punish. So prevention and punishment, both are very important in Article 1. And we know that under Article 2, genocide has been defined. Just quickly to say that in that convention, genocide means any of the following acts. So there are different acts as a part of genocide known as act of genocide. That is to be with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So all these protected groups would be affected with killing or say serious bodily or mental harm. These other lists are there. So anyway, again, we know about Professor Gregory Stanton's 10 stages model of genocide. That also there are different stages, and one stage is there, denial. And though denial is usually mentioned over there as the final stage, but in case of genocide, at the pre-genocide phase, during genocide, and also after genocide, that is in the post-genocide society, this denial actually remain continuing. So it continues. And also, in the recent past, there is another term called ethnic cleansing. It is being replaced with the term genocide when describing genocidal atrocities. But you know that it crept into the vocabulary of law, appearing in the UN declarations, press reports, government policy decisions, and even ruling by the International Court of Justice. This ethnic cleansing is being used, replacing genocide. But Article 1 of Genocide Convention imposes the obligation to prevent genocide. Therefore, avoiding the term genocide has the practical effect as denying genocide. And in case of, I just told that press and other areas, it is not being properly used, the term genocide. And one very renowned lawyer or the genocide scholar, expert, William Shabazz, so he contends that the terms ethnic cleansing, atrocities, and crimes against humanity all are equally damaging to describe the crimes, whereas Professor Gregory Stanton and some others, they also say that it is the policymakers, it gives the policymakers an easy way out so they can deny their nation's legal duty to prevent genocide. So we need to understand that genocide is a more powerful word than ethnic cleansing. And when the term genocide is used, instead of ethnic cleansing, use of force to stop it becomes possible. And when the crimes are called ethnic cleansing or crimes against humanity, it is an indicator of lack of political will to use force to stop them. That is the genocide. Ethnic cleansing is a term used to avoid forceful action to prevent genocide. So anyway, so in case of genocide, to actually term or actually come to a conclusion regarding a case as genocide, we are to be very clear knowledge about the history, what had happened, how it happened. So in case of Bangladesh, we know that during 1971, what had happened, that is actually backed by historical process. So we need to keep in mind, and how it happened, we need to know. So why recognition is crucial? We need to ask this question because our identities come from our group and its history. And also, for a true sense of identity, we must integrate our individual and community histories. This might become extremely important if some of our group is destroyed and dispersed. So we are deeply affected back in 1971, and our grief and suffering must be acknowledged, recognized, and honored, especially as we know they are the result of injustice. However, recognizing genocide when it occurs is crucial, since doing so has political and legal consequences. So in case of significance of genocide recognition, we know that usually it is being told repeatedly that our losses have been insignificant and that the brutality committed against us does not qualify as genocide, basically denies our humanity as a people and reduces our possibilities of collective healing. So both our group and our collective past, our history, shape who we are now. To fully understand who we are, we need to bring together our individual and group histories. So the announcement of genocide by any entity represents a significant prospective milestone. And that is why it is vital this history to be commemorated, and our shared responsibility is required to combat denial and assist in achieving global recognition of the Bangladesh genocide. We must not forget that silence is complicity. If we do not completely acknowledge, commemorate, and teach our children about the genocide that occurred in our own country, the very phrase "never again" loses its meaning. So who recognizes genocide? various entities recognize genocides. Those who are capable of recognizing or designating an atrocity situation as genocide, such as states, from the head of state, member of the executive, or parliament. Domestic or international courts, in their judgments, they can come to a conclusion that it is a genocidal case. Non-government organizations and intergovernmental organizations like United Nations. And also we know that the current achievement that has been mentioned, that Lemkin Institute for Prevention Genocide, then Genocide Watch, International Coalition of Sites of Conscience, and recently we got another resolution from International Association of Genocide Scholars. Thanks to all of them, because I had a direct role to play to initiate the process and finally come up with this. They responded positively and this resolutions came. So what I would like to share here, another important thing, that having this endorsement from different organizations, in recent past, just on 20th July, there is a judgment from our International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh. And in the judgment, they have given an observation. What they have written, I'm just reading a bit from there. Nation now demands global recognition of such horrendous atrocities committed in 1971. Researchers, scholars now need to go ahead to work on it, raising effective voice in alleviating global recognition, achieving global recognition, recalling untold sacrifice of millions of martyrs. Then it says the tribunal considers it indispensable to note that on the research based on proposal initiated by International Association of Genocide Scholars has recently adopted a resolution acknowledging the offenses of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes committed by the Pakistan Occupation Army and their local collaborators during the War of Liberation in 1971 in the territory of Bangladesh. And it continues with few other paras. What I'm just trying to say, that it is a very formal recognition from a tribunal that they are giving endorsement to the resolution that we are getting from different other organizations. So there's some multiplier effect. So we need to, I should not say capitalize, we need to utilize this kind of relationship, build up the relationship. And in case of achieving recognition of Bangladesh, what to do? We need the activism, which should not be a part-time occupation, but a lifelong commitment. Otherwise, we cannot actually achieve the goal. And in case of our tasks, what I feel that we need to deal with the difficult pasts, because to go ahead, we need to also know the past, and also contribute to the prevention of genocide. We need to contribute there and promote and uphold human rights, because with our recognition, we can also promote and uphold human rights. And also, we know that in case of Bangladesh, we are having a very fragmented society. So there are different narratives ongoing, because you know that in the post-genocide society, what happens, it is actually true for Bangladesh as well. So we are having, in case of our young generation, there are different other narratives, and we need to, this is another challenge, that we need to go ahead and also rule over those other fake narratives. So that is why we have to walk through the memory lens, and we need to collect the evidences from our memories, the testimonies, archival documents, many other research works. So all these are very needed. And who will do this? It is our government of Bangladesh and its different organs, including foreign ministry, diplomats all over the world, government of other countries, because we need to make bridge with them and motivate them to come up with some resolution in the parliaments, our International Crimes Tribunal, our civil society, political, social, cultural platforms, youth, including the students, again, the victim family members and survivors that just told other speakers as well. So the survivors are there, victim families, family members are there, freedom fighters are there. So diaspora Bangladeshi community all over the world, and then genocide experts, scholars in country and abroad, media, institutions like museums, LWM, Center for Genocide Studies, and others, organizational platforms like Projanmo 71, Nirmul Committee, Amra Ekatur, and so on, our foreign friends all over the world. So that is why actually we need to make some bridge and collaboration, strengthen that. So to do that, we need to have a very grand plan that is to be coordinated with a very clear understanding where to go and how to go and what we're actually going to achieve. We have a very strong collaboration between government and non-government, individual and organizations, national and international platforms. So it is very needed. We have to be very transparent, because any kind of intransparency may actually make the whole thing difficult. We have to be accountable in the sense that we have to be very committed and serious. There should be continuity. And in case of, especially for the youth, the students, there must be a good curriculum so that they have a good knowledge of genocide, so that they could be an upstander, so that they could know that they have to uphold what had happened in a country, that is to be recognized. And also in case of future possibilities of genocide, those students will come forward and prevent them. So that is very important. And very recently, a few years back, me and another son of a martyr, Pradeep Kumar Dutt, we actually jointly write one small write-up. The title is Pathways to Global Recognition of the Bangladesh Genocide. Over there, we try to give a pathway of how to achieve our goal. So that we try to write there. So I'm trying to conclude here saying that there are very key significant connections, 3 key significant connections. One is, in case of, say, myself, I heard the true story from my mother. At that time, I was 3 years. And my brothers, also from other books and other way. So from that, I internalized that stories, what had happened. That is my past. I'm bearing that, and I'm trying to tell that to others, to the new generation. They need to understand what I am telling. They need to internalize what I am telling, why I am telling. So these interconnections are to be there. Otherwise, we cannot make our youth workable and make them turn to a very effective force to achieve international genocide. International recognition of Bangladesh genocide. And there is one step for breaking the silence. The museum, Canadian Museum of the Human Rights, they are already told that they are opening a gallery exhibiting the what had happened in Bangladesh. There is another advancement. So we need to make a bridge, so that I believe that all together with our, actually we'll join hands in hands. So of course, we can achieve our goal. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Tawhid Rejanur. Definitely, we all will work together. And on this account, I thank you, our partners and scholars, Professor Dr. Adam Muller and Dr. Jeremy Meron as well. The audience, we are absolutely at the end of our session. We have already overshot the time. Nonetheless, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin is our next speaker, and he's the director with the Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, professor at North-South University in Bangladesh. And he's also the one of the main organizers with me in this project. And we just will listen to him very briefly. Dr. Hilal, if you kindly keep your remarks very brief, that will be highly appreciated. Go ahead, sir.
His Excellency Dr. Khalilur Rahman, Bangladesh High Commissioner to Canada, keynote speaker Professor Adam Muller and Professor Hafizur Rahman Karjan, discussions Dr. Jeremy Meron, Mr. Mofidul Haq, and Dr. Tawhid Rejanur, and other panelists. Good morning from Canada, good evening from Bangladesh. I am suffering from fever, probably it's a flu, and I am hoping to get cured by tomorrow. Let's see what happens. So my point is truth prevails. Truth triumphs over truthlessness. It is my understanding that Bangladesh genocide did receive some denial, but not significantly actually. It mostly suffered inattention of the global communities. I agree with Dr. Tawhid Raja Noor that the term ethnic cleansing did complicate the genocide question to many extents actually. Many started asking, even we heard from many people whether this is ethnic cleansing or genocide, but it was undoubtedly a genocide, and we tried to convince them again and again that even on one condition, intent to destroy, that's enough to claim that it was a genocide. So we already spoke about that many times before in many discussions and many sessions. Indeed, there was some debate, but that was about the number of the persecuted. It is always difficult to establish an exact figure that will never be questioned by others. But Bangladesh genocide is now being recognized globally. That's a very good sign. Our activists and our advocacy partners are really working hard on this topic. So the process was slow before, but now it got traction and now it is being expedited. That's a very good sign. Professor Karjan already shed light on that, and Dr. Tawhid Reza Noor also shed light on the same topic. So Bangladesh genocide was so evident, even the perpetrators, they hardly dare to deny that it was not a genocide. I have gone through different documents, many documents actually, because they had some light, low voice. Indeed, there are some apologists. There were apologists all the time before and at present as well. But their voice was so low and their excuses were so meritless. We may not need to put too much emphasis on the term, on the concept genocide denial. This is the 52nd years of Bangladesh's independence. So the genocide recognition is long overdue. That's the fact. And we are working to make it happen, recognition. It deserved international curation decades ago. And now I thank all our thanks, heartfelt thanks goes to Canadian Museum for Human Rights, because Jeremy came up to support us in every way possible. So it's a better late than never. We are on the track, I believe. I strongly believe that we are on the track. We are happy to express our heartiest gratitude once again to other partners and other activists, those who are working all over the world in different parts of the world, in different continents, and trying to make the diaspora community aware about the need of this genocide recognition movement. Again, the last but not very least, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. I can say that together we contribute to the human rights causes for the world communities. Thank you once again very much for all your persistence to advance the genocide recognition efforts in cooperation with the CMHR. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hilal. Thank you for your contribution in this project. The audience will close the session shortly. Before you go, let me bring the chief patron to the floor for his concluding remarks. Sir, floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Kausar. I'll be very brief. I can't thank you all more. The discussion was so insightful. It was for me always educative. I think over the discussions, we are sure that we come to a conclusion that the Bangladesh genocide deserves its recognition. And I definitely our independent, not our museum's independent, reviewer and Jeremy himself, they were kind enough to visit Bangladesh and saw the evidence in their own eyes. I just, like to say that, ever since I came, I met these two gentlemen, Dr. Kausar Ahmed and Hilal Mohiuddin, and we thought of taking up the issue. I think they tried before, then something happened. So I just encouraged them, and they were very kind enough to work together to come up with ideas. And I was I always try to take some credit that I was part of the process of establishment of the Bangabandhu Center and Bangabandhu Center, Creek and other partners, Liberation War Museum. Then came up other organizations like Pujon Ekatpur and others to work together. So I really value and this partnership, and thank you all for collaborating with us. Professor Imdad Haq sir, I know him. He's not only from the renowned University of Manitoba, but also an advisor of the center. Adam Muller, definitely, I always call him independent reviewer, but he's a great professor himself, coming from a great university. And Jeremy, taking the task of the huge task of assessing this application. I thank you all for your kind understanding, collaboration. And the last thing I wanted to take the floor just to say that if everything goes fine, and if the museum finds it appropriate and finally agrees to go for the event on breaking the silence, and please do let us know whether we have also tried to bring along our partners on that very specific special day to commemorate the genocide in Bangladesh in 1971. And I'll also try my best if we can also get some dignitary on that special occasion. And I'll be working with you all, especially Jeremy, with you and the museum authorities to make it happen. So once again, I thank you, Dr. Kausar, and all of you for being with us today. I think we had a very useful discussion, and we keep on doing this thing. And I also like to say that how museum we can work with museum to have this educative program, as Tohid Reza Noor I think emphasized, for the young generation to really know the real story, what happened in Bangladesh, the genocide committed by the Pakistani occupation forces in 1971. So we'll be working with the museum, we'll be collaborating. Please do let us know what we can do. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your concluding remarks. The audience, we are going to close this session, but before I close formally, I think it is worth listening to, because I started the session quoting from Archer Blood's work and his reports. The report of Archer Blood serves as an invaluable historical record, one that challenges us to face the uncomfortable truths of the past in the pursuit of justice and lasting peace. And I don't mean to hold you enough, but I think it's very tempting for me to share his daughter's reflections on this matter. And we all know and understand United States' role in 1971, but we also today express our deep gratitude and remember the contribution of Blood family to Bangladesh and the creation of Bangladesh. And I'm just playing up brief snippets from the 6 minutes interview that was taken in U.S. Embassy in Dhaka a couple of years back. So just bear with us for next just 2-3 minutes and have a listen to her own reflection of the matter. I'm just trying to play here. Just bear with me another second here. I think I'll go in a different.
No sound.
Okay, if there is no sound, then just a second, sir. We'll not attempt to play it, but the audience, the video is in the YouTube. You can listen to her interview, and her name is Barbara Blood, and she was around 6 years old when she was accompanying her father in Bangladesh. And as I said, I would like to conclude the session respecting Archer Blood's family's contribution. And if you watch this clip, you will be coming across the one of the decisions of Archer Blood family to send a part of his ashes to Bangladesh because they feel strongly connected to the country. And Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, actually invited her and recognized her and her family's contribution in this whole initiative a couple of years ago. So have a listen if you have time later on. We are sorry we couldn't play it properly as intended, but it is out there. The audience, the Bangladesh genocide of 71 and before that is not a subject that can be swept under the rug or relegated to the margins of history. It's a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink when driven by ethnic and political animosities. So with this one, our deep respect for the millions who lost their lives during this whole period. On behalf of the Center and Institute, I would like to thank Dr. Jeremy Meron, Professor Adam Muller, Professor Emdad, and Professor Curzon, Dr. Tawhid Reza Noor for being with us for almost 1 hour and 35 minutes. And your contribution is recognized, and your contributions are well appreciated by the peoples of Bangladesh, and is represented by His Excellency Dr. Khalilur Rahman this morning. Thank you all, and those who have joined all across the globe. I have received so many messages. I couldn't share all. Again, apology there, but you can always access the comments in our social media links. Thank you so much. We look forward to work together with the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in the coming days and months, and so that our proposal get accepted. And we'll welcome all of you, especially the diaspora community, to get more involved in this effort, because your commitment, your involvement matters a lot in recognizing the genocide of Bangladesh. Thank you, the audience and all the presenters today. Stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.